Welcome all, Raymond for Stream Gamers. Today's video is going to be about how do you get a tubeliner in the air, simplified. And then also not just about one type of tubeliner, but just in general. Now, we happen to be looking at an A320. This is the default A320 Asobo version 2. I've picked it for a specific reason. I don't want to deal with third party. This is more for the new budding simmers out there to get a simplified version of how to do this without all of the the acronyms, the correctness of it all. How do I get an aircraft from the gate, start it up, taxi it out, and take off? Now, in this video, will be a two-parter, and I'm only going to cover up until us push back, start it, and just getting ready for taxi. I'll stop there, which will be in the second part, of course. But if somebody wants me to carry on and go through the continuing process to simplify, departure, arrival, and all those things, I'm happy to do that. I'm also happy to do a companion video to this if there's interest in it from looking at it from a Boeing perspective rather than an Airbus. Having said that, I'm going to make references in the Airbus, but I'm also going to be talking about similarities in the Boeing as well, because that's kind of what this video is about. It's not specifically about an Airbus aircraft. It's supposedly for tubeliners in general. I just happen to be using an Airbus because I can't have two of them side by side and do it again, do it as well. So, I mean, having said that, I probably could, but that might be for another video. Anyways, in the flight deck. Now, those that know me know I use SimBrief to do my flight plans, and I'm only using this as a tool because I need some of this information. You'll note that my AirRack cycle is out of date. For those seasoned veterans of the simming world, I have canceled my subscription to Navigraph. Nothing wrong with Navigraph. I think it's a wonderful product. But I also know that so many new simmers out there do not have this. And quite honestly, everybody reaching into a person's pocket for $5, $10 a month, it tends to add up. And for a lot of people, it's more than they can bear. And then there are free versions, free things out there that can do a very similar job. Okay? So I haven't utilized Navigraph for some time in its entirety. I use it, and I use it only for charts. That's my primary thing for charts. There's other utilities out there for weather and all that kind of stuff, but I use it for charts. And it's very nice for charts, but ChartFox is free and it provides a chart. So this is the chart for the approach for Winnipeg, runway 36. It is a Cat 2 approach. It's all here. All of the information that you would get on an Navigraph Jepson chart, it's here. The only difference is this chart doesn't cost me anything. The Navigraph chart, I live in Canada, the Navigraph chart I think is like $13 a month. On its face is not a lot of money, but when you couple this $13 with that $13 with that $12 with, and the list, those simming guys who are simming and have all these things, you guys know what I'm talking about. The new simmers you don't know yet, but you're going to find out. There is a raft of applications out there that you can download and pay a monthly subscription for that will make your flight experience more realistic, more lifelike. It's great, but it requires you to spend, $50, $60, $100 a month to do that. Anyways, enough of that. Here we are. So, in starting this, and this is kind of a warning for all you avid simmers, all you correct simmers, and all you actual Airbus, Boeing pilots. I'm about to say a bunch of stuff that you guys are going to be like, what? No, you didn't say. Yeah, I did say these things. It is through my experience of being a flight simmer, not as long as some of you have been, but I've been a flight simmer for a minute or two. And so these are the things that I've learned. So the first one that you're going to be shocked at, starting a tube liner is no different than going outside in your garage and putting the key in the ignition of your truck or car or SUV and turning it over and starting it. It's no different. It requires the same things. It needs fuel, ignition, and combustion, or in this case, rotation. But it's fundamentally the same thing. So let's get started, shall we? Up here in the Airbus and the Boeing, up here is the source of power. Boeing's is over here somewhere, I believe, but this is the Airbus. So we turn that on. Notice we got 28.4 volts, 28.3 volts. When we turn the power on, like so, things start to illuminate. And notice how we've already drained down to 28.3 over here. And this will continue to drain down. This is not the battery that we use to start the engine. This is just the battery used to power the systems to get to the next step. The next step is to have ground power, okay, or external power in this case. We turn the external power on, and you notice the fuel pump lights come on, a bunch of other lights are coming on, and they're flashing and so forth, okay? If we look down here, we'll see our display starting to light up. The other thing we're going to do up here is the inertial reference system, or IRS. Both Boeing and Airbus have it, and the other jets too, but Boeing and Airbus. We turn these on to nav. Boeing's inertial reference systems, there's one kind of up there, kind of one in the center, way up there as well, and one to the right up there as well. Have a look for the little white switches. They're smaller switches than these, but they're up there. Turn them on. Okay? Now, as we talked about, right now we have our batteries turned on, okay? And they're replenishing themselves. Remember, this was at 28.3 and now it's at 28.4, so they're coming back to life because this power is in its place. The next thing is we want to turn on the APU. The APU, or auxiliary power unit. Whew. Anyways, auxiliary power unit. That's an onboard power system, unlike this being in the offboard power system. When we push back, we're going to disconnect this. And if we disconnect this, pushing back and getting ready to start, we're going to lose power. And we always start pushing back from the gate before we start turning any of the engines on. So we got to have an onboard power system, and that happens to be the APU. In order to turn the APU on, we have to have fuel. Our fuel selector switches are here. The Boeings are down here somewhere. Look at the lines, the patterns on these lines. That's going to indicate what, if I turn this fuel pump on, what will it supply fuel to? Okay, so in this case, turn this fuel pump on, click, it's on. It's going to supply fuel to this engine and the APU. It will not supply fuel to this engine because there's the brake. We can do the cross feed or the X feed. And if we put that on, now this pump effectively has the ability to send fuel to that engine, One pump isn't enough, but you could, in theory, that will work. Right now, I just want the fuel pump on for the APU, and I've done that. Down here, on the Boeing, it's in a very similar place. In this area is the APU switch. It's a single switch that's here and a little starter switch. So we turn on the master switch, and then we turn on the start switch. And for you guys that want to see what's going on, the APU is at the back of the jet. This is typically where it is. And eventually you're going to see a bit of a heat wave. Let me go out. And you're going to see a bit of a heat wave, and that's the heat wave that you're going to see. There it is. That's telling me that the APU is actually starting, okay? So for you new pilots who aren't sure, have a look at the back of the aircraft. Boeing does the same thing, right? So if you're in a Boeing, go back here and have a look at it. I believe the Boeing, these lights actually light up, at least in the PMDG, and that's the only, like I've got the 737 PMDG, the 777 PMDG, but I believe these lights do light up. And I wonder if in the Airbus they light up after the APU is functional. The other thing you can do is you can come down here And there is a switch down here called APU. If we push that on, we can see there is the APU in its entirety, right? N1 is coming up, EGT is dropping. There it is. It just came live, okay? So we're providing 400 hertz, 116 volts of power. We're consuming, right now the APU is supplying 24% of its available power into the jet, okay? Okay, so that's that. We're going to see these displays. They've illuminated, both the captain and the first officer have them. And these displays are obviously not functional yet, but they're going to become functional as we get the IRS aligned and more of the system running. We're going to look at the flight bag. So the flight bag is basically, it's a tablet, right? And it's not necessarily linked to the FMC or the MCDU, the flight management systems, but it's where you can start doing some calculations and so forth. Now in the sim, they've taken some liberties to make some connections and so forth. If I hit the sim brief right here, I've brought in my sim brief flight plan, which is there. I've brought that in, right? And so there it is. Now, I'm not going to use a lot. I'm not going to talk about this a lot because this isn't a flight bag thing. This is more about a new pilot trying to cold and dark and try to get a closer experience to the real world experience. So down here we have, in the Airbus, it's called an MCDU. In the Boeing, it's called a flight management system or an FMS. Okay, we're going to click the clear button. Click the clear button. We see align IRS alignment or align IRS. That is what we're after, along with other stuff. I'm going to clear a few of these things. If I press the INIT button, waiting for the system to respond, we get this screen. Boeing has a similar button to be pressed to get to this spot. Okay, I can input or I can pull the information from SimBrief into the aircraft, and for this demonstration, that's my intention. But I can also manually put this information in too, right? I have it. It is in the flight bag right here. All the necessary information is in there somewhere, so you can extract it out. But again, for these new pilots, that might be a bit more than what they're after. So in the Airbus, we will hit request, and it pulls all the information in. Okay, we will click that, and we will see the alignment of the IRS is beginning. I believe that's on its way. There's a few more things we need to do in order to finish that process up. Now, in the Boeing, they have a very similar button that you push to bring the data in. PMDG has their own unique system. It's, in my opinion, it's unique, but it's similar nevertheless. You push a button, and it tells you it's getting ready to do it, and eventually, boop, it populates. It does take a little longer, and I think they're trying to simulate a more realistic feel than instantly pulling the information in. Okay, and like I said before, if you want, I'll do a companion video of this. I may try to get a picture and put it up on the screen here somewhere, just so we can kind of look at the two different MCDU FMSs and side by side. Anyways, so it's populated information such as our flight altitude. It's given us our from and our to. We are in WestJet 1966. That's the flight number, okay, and so on and so forth. So our next step is we're going to look at the flight plan itself. So there's the flight plan. Now, because I imported that in, most of the flight plan is here. You can see if we toggle through, it's here. This is the same thing that you can do in the Boeing. It has a series of right and left buttons, I believe is how it works. But you can toggle through. It has a flight plan button. You can click on there and see your flight plan, okay? What we want to do is we want to make sure that we get our departure and our arrival, or what's known as our SID and a star. SID, standard instrument departure. Star, standard arrival. I forget the true whole acronym, but that's fundamentally that's what it's about. Those that know exactly what the star, that abbreviation actually stands for, comment section, bloop bloop it down there and let me know what's what. Anyways, so Winnipeg, we are here, and as I showed you the route here, this is the route we're taking. We're departing 18. We're coming in 17 left, and I'm going to utilize the rest of this information. So it's not really about getting this stuff in here. It's about how do you get this stuff done from both Boeing and Airbus. So we'll put that in. We don't have a star. We don't have a SID. We just have an airport or a runway that we're departing from, and which is 18. Okay, so SID none. Click. Transitions are set for none. We have no SID, and away we go. We click insert. Again, Boeing has a similar function. You have to insert what you've done. Okay, so now we see Winnipeg 18, and it's going to take off on that runway, or that's the plan. We're going to do the arrival, 17 left. In this case, we do have a star. That's this Burke 06. We also have a transition of PIK. PIK is right here. Now, I'm going to show you how I get this information after we looked at this. So here, departure 18, it goes direct to here. So that's telling me there's no SID. Had there been a SID, it would be in here. There would be something right there. Okay, and that would be my SID. Likewise, when I look at the arrival, you see the arrival has got this, and there's the airport and the runway. So it goes direct from here to here, which is, this is the actual transition that we put in, and this is the actual star. Now, for those that don't understand that, it is not a singular waypoint. It is a group of waypoints beginning with this, okay? And then ending with the landing at the airport. Okay, so there we have it. That's our flight plan all put in, ready to go. We see this discontinuity in this manual. Now, I'm going to talk about that briefly. So, I had a person make a comment about one of my videos where I did this, and I want to let that person know if he's watching the video, she's watching the video. I understand that we're not supposed to technically remove vectors and or these discontinuities because they are telling us that ATC should be assisting us with this, the next steps. So when I leave here, I do a manual flight, and then I need to be in contact with ATC, and ATC will vector me to this waypoint. However, for us young budding pilots who don't know this stuff, we don't understand. I don't understand that it's going to happen, and B, we don't utilize the ATC to that level. Quite honestly, the ATC in 2020, I'm guessing 2024 is going to have the same problem. It's not realistic enough, in my opinion. Okay, so I remove them. How do you remove them? In the Airbus, we click the clear button. We click manual. We get that out. We click the clear button. We click flight plan discontinuity. Now we end up going from here direct to there, and that's how we remove that out. In the Boeing, let's presume this was the discontinuity that we had the problem with. We would click on this button here, this one here, and we would put it over top of that one. It would remove that one out and put this one in its place. And that's the function of Boeing. Basically the same function, or it amounts to the same thing. We remove that manual and that discontinuity. It's now gone, okay? So we've got that in. We've got our flight plan set. We look here, we see our green line. In the Airbus, it's green line. In the Boeing, it's a magenta line. We will refer, a lot of people will refer when you're talking to your friends and other pilots, they will refer to the flight path as the magenta line, even though in the Airbus it's green, clearly. But don't get distracted by those colors because they all mean the same thing. It's the flight path in which the aircraft will take to get you from A to B. If we scroll this out, we can see, some 160 nautical miles out, as much as 300 nautical miles out. We can see that far out, okay? Boeing, same dial, same idea. They have the same thing in here. We can go from what is this to what is the flight plan display. There's the flight plan display. And we can now look at the flight plan in its entirety up to 320 nautical miles. So I'm going to dial this in again, and you can see we are departing runway 17 here. We're going up here, we're going here, we're turning here, and down we go. Remember, this was the transition spot right here. This was the actual star, right? So we get to the star, we go through the transition, and these are all the waypoints that are included within the star. Okay, like I was talking about before. Again, Boeing has the same deal. It's in this location. The dial looks different, but it functions the same way. All right. Now, what's next? We're going to go to our performance page. Okay. So within our performance page, we're going to talk a little bit about this stuff right here, and that is the V speeds. So without being technical about the V speeds, you are going to rotate the aircraft. Most of these tubeliners are going to call for rotate. They'll give you an audible, I think, and tell you that you should rotate. What does rotate mean? Basically, rotate means that you've gained a sufficient enough of speed and lift so that when you pull back on your joystick, yoke, or controller, it should begin to rise the nose and lift up. You shouldn't have to yank way back. If you're doing that, you're not gaining enough speed, okay? So you need to make sure you get enough speed. How do you determine this speed? Well, in the Boeing line, these speeds are kind of provided for you as you go through the process. And again, I could do a companion video and show you that. But fundamentally, in the Boeing, as you set up the FMS, you will get these V speeds provided to you. They'll be this is kind of over here, and there'll be some generic speeds that'll be here, and then you'll press these buttons to input that in. In the Airbus, you actually generate that through this flight bag, okay? So in putting in the data here, I'm not going to do it, but in putting all the required data here, which can be gotten from here or Little Nav Map, once you get all that information in there, you will hit calculate. It will give you what is going to be your flex temp, your V speed, your VR, your V2. It's going to give you your gross vehicle weight, or your center of gravity, I mean. And so it's going to give you all that information. I'm going to take some liberty and provide you some very quick, down and dirty information here that's going to pretty much get you to let you take off safely every time. Okay? And that information begins with V1 at 135. VR is 140. And V2 is 145. Those speeds are pretty much going to let you take off with an Airbus A310, 320, 319, 321. I'll be cautious to not include A380 because I don't have enough experience in the A380. But those speeds are going to be enough for you to take off from pretty much any reasonably length airport that you should be taking off. So don't put yourself on a 1,500 foot runway and say, "Hey, dude, you told me this was going to work." It's not going to work. No speeds here are going to work for that. Anyways, the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to put in our flex temp. Now, our flex temp on the Boeing they have your predetermined set derated or rated takeoff power. Okay. Again, there's a display there that actually will go through that with you. In the Boeing side of thing, you don't really need to do anything there. Just go through the screens. Don't worry about that. Put your V speeds in, and you're going to be set. In the Airbus, we want to set what we call is our flex temp. Okay, so again, there's calculators out there for that, but in general, 59 degrees is going to work. Now, it's not going to work in every area, so those avid simming Airbus pilots who are shocked by me putting that number in there, you're right. There is a more technical calculation to do this with, but the whole purpose of this video is to get away from that technical calculation and get simmers flying and starting cold and dark from the gate and putting all this information in and actually starting to understand what some of the stuff is for and why it's needed. Okay, so that in conjunction with cost indexed is what we're going to use for what we call flex. Okay, so here, unlike the Boeing, here on the throttle quadrant, we have our auto throttle here, we have our CL mode, our flex, and we have our toga. Now, Boeing has toga, and it uses the FMC to control the throttle and the amount of thrust necessary in order for it to take off. The Airbus, you set your throttle quadrant to your flex on your takeoff roll. Once you're airborne and gear is up and you're stabilized and that kind of stuff, you will put it to CL and you will leave it there. Okay. In the Boeing, you will set it for toga. In the 737 PMDG and 777, there's a little screw somewhere's on the dashboard here. Somewhere's in this location. You click on that screw and that sets you for toga. But also you can do it on the throttle quadrant as well. Okay, so that's enough of that. Next, now here we have what is called phases. Boeing has a similar function, but I don't think they refer to them as phases, but here we have what is now known as a managed climb phase. And if you look at our displays, they're all properly populated and lit up the way they're supposed to because we have set in all that information. So we can utilize the managed climb at 250. We can actually set it for something else if we want, but we can use that. Again, the Boeing system, they have this rated thrust that is used that you can select thrust 1, 2, or 3 or something like that. I can't remember how that screen looks. I wish I'd have looked that up. But when you set that in the Boeing, you're effectively doing the same thing here in the Airbus. We're going to let the MCU manage the climb. We're going to let it manage the cruise. We're going to let it manage the descent, and we're going to let it manage the approach. Okay, so we're not going to put any more information in here. You can go into here and populate all this information. But again, for those new budding pilots who are just trying to get, an aircraft started up on the deck and pushed out and taxied and take off, you don't need to learn all that stuff yet. There is a time for that, and again, for those that might want to have a more in-depth version of all that, put it in the comment section, and I will be happy to provide a more detailed version of what I do, not necessarily what every actual real-life pilot does, but how I address all those things. That video will take a little longer to do, but I'm happy to do it. All right, so here we are. What is our next steps? Well, our next steps are to look at the time of the video and go, yeah, we're getting there. So we're going to shut this part down. As I said, it will be a two-parter. So we're going to shut this part down for you guys. It will be maybe an hour in between each video, or however long it takes for you to get your snack and your bologna sandwich or whatever you're having to get to the next one. For me, it's going to be instant. So I will say thank you for watching this video. Raymond for Stream Gamers. Like, comment, subscribe, all those wonderful things. I appreciate that. I appreciate all of my people that are into this and are continuing to help me grow the channel. You guys are wonderful, amazing people to allow me to do what I'm doing and you to be enjoying the content. So do all your button pushing, let your friends know and so forth like that. Be kind. Love life, enjoy things, play some games. Don't sweat the little things. Don't worry about all of the little things, because they'll take care of themselves eventually. All right, on to the next one. I will see you on the next one. Bye-bye now.